What's going on, guys? Nick Lesagore here.
Brandon Delakier.
Exit 12.
Brewery.
On the computer and in the house.
In our houses.
Going digitally.
That's right.
Killing the game here with the first time Brandon and I have done not only a live stream together, technically just the two of us, but also the first time that we have been together in this kind of format and been doing something like this, like a beer review.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of dumb. We probably should have done it a while ago because it makes sense when we can't, get together. But this is a perfect opportunity to try it out.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't like Brandon said, it's probably something that we should have thought of to begin with. But here we are.
It's not as much fun, though.
What do you mean?
Because when we're sitting next to each other, it's kind of fun. I can play off you, and you try to take up all the room with your big body.
That's right.
Got all the room in the world here, bud.
That's right. You don't have anybody pushing you over. But here we are. It's definitely different. Obviously, as Brandon mentioned, we'd probably want to be together, but we can't be. So we are here doing a live first taste of the hashtag Unity Brew Day blueberry American Hefeweizen that we call Selling Out. It's a 5.8%, 14 IBU Hefeweizen that if you look at a future video, I do a personal tasting with just me for the first time. My own first taste I did on camera that I will post at some point shortly or soon after this video. But I wanted to get Brandon's thoughts on the beer, so that's why we're doing this special live video that hopefully people will be able to go back and watch. So the Hefeweizen itself for Unity Brew Day, we can go over the brew day, but first, Brandon, why don't you talk about what was in the beer in terms of the grist and maybe hit the hops and the yeast real quick.
Okay, so we went with 4 pounds Pilsner, 1 3/4 pounds of the Briess 2-row, 1 pound of Carafoam, 1 pound of Valley of Vienna, 1 pound of white wheat, 8 ounces of acidulated acid, 4 ounces of honey malt, and we just did a little bit of Huell Melon and Centennial at the end of the boil, and we used Imperial Flagship for the yeast. That's
right. Yeah, and what we found with the Imperial Flagship yeast was super interesting. It's a really mild yeast. I think when I told a few of the brew tubers about the yeast that we were using, I think they were a little surprised because it's not like a classic Hefeweizen yeast, but it really brought some awesome characteristics. It really allowed the malts and the blueberry to take over. And what I really enjoyed about the yeast is that it's really nice in terms of kind of subduing the hops a little bit. The hops kind of have a really nice bitterness. I don't want to give too much away about the beer itself. So Brandon, why don't you give that thing a pour?
Okay. So I got my blueberries.
Brandon's got his blueberries.
Berries.
I have my blueberries as well.
Killing the label game.
Oh, stop it! He knows that I usually put labels on the beers, but because of what's going on right now, I didn't feel comfortable going to where we usually go to get the labels. So, how was that pop?
It was good.
Oh, look at that! And if you can see mine, I don't want to pour mine out, but mine's got some bloobs in it as well. I'll pull it back. That was kind of obnoxious to not. I was up like this. That was stupid. So. Yeah, Brandon's is very carbonated.
Well, yeah, we usually when we bottle, we usually bleed the keg and do a few other things that we just didn't do on this one because again, it was a timing thing. But yeah, it'll settle out.
It will.
Look at that head. Look at head.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know about the head retention yet, but that thing's got a big head. What's up to Brian from Short Circuited? He just popped in. Appreciate you watching, brother. Yeah. So, and I've talked to Brian. Brian was actually the inspiration behind this beer, which was he did his own blueberry Hefeweizen, and him and I kind of chatted for quite a bit And what was so fun about chatting with him is that he had the experience of doing it already. So he kind of gave me his notes, and then Brandon and I put our little Exit 12 spin on it. So Brian and I actually use the same flavoring company. I don't know if we use the same flavoring, but we use the same company. So as you can see, Brandon, if you can put yours up to the camera a little bit, it is definitely Hefeweizen looking. It's not fully clear, but it's not fully hazy, which is exactly what you want. You can see my finger a little bit, which is nice. Brandon's got some bloobs chilling on the bottom and the top. And we really had such a great time while we wait for the head on Brandon's beer to kind of dissipate so we can pour a little bit more. Chatting about the Unity Brew Day. We had such a good time chatting with the other brew tubers. We had fans of channels come in and hang out with us. I started in the morning. Brian and Gary ended up, kind of coming out and watching the video and kind of hanging out. And they actually gave us some great tips on utilizing baking soda with your pH as opposed to lactic acid, which we were kind of messing up. So we learned something new, and we hit 76% efficiency on the day, which was great. And that's something that we'll take all day long. So we've been hitting that consistently.
Yeah, I think it was we don't really have a local homebrew club anyway, so having this sort of happen and being able to sort of pop in and do something like this, I think is something that will help us going forward. And as brew tubers, I think it actually brought a lot of us closer as brew tubers, and I think this is something that we will continue to do. Maybe popping in, doing tastings, doing other different things with other people, while we can't always be, together because we definitely live in other parts of the state.
Yeah. And to Brandon's point about being in the country, and to Brandon's point about bringing us closer together, I ended up after my brew day, our brew day, I hopped onto Zoom, which is our platform that will be doing most, if not all of our future kind of group brew days. And it was such a great time to meet with like Gary, who's doing his own thing, Mike Dean, Nate Pico, Nate's father. There were so many people, SJ, Josh was on there at one point. We had some like old brew tubers, some new brew tubers, and then it ended up being that SJ, myself, and I think somebody in SJ's, I think his name's Andrew, in SJ's club. The three of us ended up shutting down the night. And we actually went until the Zoom kicked us off because we had hit the time limit. So that was a great time chatting with those guys, and Brandon and I learned a lot about our own processes. Yeah. So you want to pour a little bit more of that, and then we'll get to the aroma.
Yeah, don't tell me what to do.
Brandon does not like being told what to do. That's one thing that is for sure. Perfect. Oh, that looks much better. All right. Brandon's got his bloobs jumping around there. They're bouncing. So okay. Brandon, let's get if you can get a nose on that. Yep. Let's get a snap-a-roo, kaboom. All
right.
What are you getting?
Yeah, so right off the bat, it has that blueberry punch. Actually, while I was pouring it, I could smell the blueberries coming up. It's definitely got a like a huge blueberry hit. And it's not too, like sometimes if they're, overripe or you actually use the actual fruit in the process, sometimes they can be that like a little sour, like really unripened blueberries. This is coming off as like
sweet.
Yeah, extremely sweet.
It's got that really nice fruit aspect to it. That blueberry, that kind of, it's got a really like sweet, fresh blueberry kind of aspect.
Yeah, it's really the thing that's really taken off is the blueberry. It's almost like that old cereal, Blueberry. Do you remember Blueberry? The little ghost.
I'm not old as hell, so no.
That's rude. It's not an old thing. It's just a being a person thing. But okay.
All right, fair enough. It's just being a person thing. I get it. Yeah. I get farmhousey. Like I definitely get some like hay. Kind of those kind of European farmhousey aspects. It could be the wheat that's doing it.
It could be. It's got a little grass to it as well, but it's not getting that overly yeasty characteristic that some Hefeweizens get, which makes sense because we didn't use the natural Hefeweizen yeast. So, I mean, it definitely it smells very clean, and it allows for those blueberries in the aroma, which is really what we wanted. We wanted the blueberries to really shine.
Yeah, and Brian keeps asking. Hold on. We used so the blueberry flavoring we ended up going with was blueberry fruit is the name of it. We also had another blueberry that I can't remember the name of, but to us, this blueberry smelled a lot more like a natural blueberry, which is what we were going for. But I think the blueberry definitely takes off quite a bit, but it definitely has that really nice farmhouse aspect. And as you mentioned, the yeast kind of allows that. You know, if you had gone with a more traditional yeast, I think it may have been a little too yeasty. Like the French Saison 3711 from W Yeast is just, in my experience, within a couple of weeks, I found that it gets extremely yeasty and it's almost too farmhousey, you know, and it takes over the other flavor aspects.
Yeah, just like hops, if you use one of those yeasts, it can sometimes take over all the other flavors. And especially with something like this, a fruited Hefeweizen, we really wanted to like just showcase that blueberry punch. So yeah, I think that was the right choice.
Yeah, and did you write down the yeast? I can't remember the name of the yeast. I know it's Imperial, but
yeah, Flagship.
Which,
gotcha. Yeah, okay. Definitely isn't a Hefeweizen yeast. I think it's more for like IPAs and stuff.
Yeah, it's an all-rounder yeast, but it's definitely not too style for a Hefe for sure. But the reason why I chose it is because it's low flocculating. So low to medium flocculation. So I knew that we were going to get some level of haze on it. And with this beer specifically, what I ended up doing was I started fermenting at 63, but after doing some research, I found that with Imperial's Flagship, if you ferment on the low end, it's 62 to 72. If you ferment on the low end, you end up getting a beer that's more clear. So I ended up bumping it up to 66 within probably 12 to 24 hours. And I kept it at 66 until I lost power because of a rainstorm, and we lost power for probably a day and a half. And it ended up going down to 62 without power. I never opened up the fridge. It went down to 62, and by that point, it was kind of rounding off on the fermentation. So
well, it definitely worked. This beer,
definitely wanted to give that little background. But Brandon, I'm pumped for you to try this. So, cheers, brother.
Do this.
Salud.
Cheers. Yeah. So right off the bat, you get a nice. It might be the honey malt. It's got that very nice honey like sweetness right up front, and then the blueberries sort of hit in the middle portion, and it cleans out very well. And I am getting a little of that farmhousey yeasty thing that you might get with a French Saison yeast or something, but it's not like as overly pungent as that would be, which is good because you get a little bit of that farmhouse with the Hefeweizen, but it's not like overpowering.
And I think that farmhouse aspect, again, in my opinion, is from the wheat because, again, you're using a yeast that's really balanced and it's not made for Hefeweizens per se. So I think that the wheat is and possibly the fermentation temperature could be attributing to the farmhouse aspect, but it's not, as you mentioned, overly yeasty at all. And I don't think you're going to get that ever with this beer because of the yeast we used and the fermentation that we were going for. I don't think you're going to get that. And I think you nailed it on the head. I'm pretty sure in the video where I review the beer separately, I mentioned how the blueberry comes in the middle and that the back end, middle to back end, you get a really smooth bitterness that really dissipates super quick. And you just took another sip, and that's what I find myself doing. Is that like I'll put it down, and within 30 seconds, I'm picking it back up. And that's the point of a Hefeweizen. It's supposed to be refreshing. Excuse me. It's supposed to cleanse the palate. It's supposed to make you want another sip, and that's exactly what this beer is doing.
Yeah, the blueberry is very well done. We've done a lot of fruited beers, and we've had a lot of issues with fruited beers. It's a very hard style to sort of grasp. So I think that in this extract is playing so nicely with this beer. How much did you put in?
I put in as Brian suggested. What he usually does for his. Well, I don't want to give away any of his recipe secrets, but this is I think there's 10 milliliters in this. I think it's a milliliter dropper. So I used like 1 milliliter. So it ended up being like 25 drops.
Yeah, it's actually really it's very good. It's not overpowering, which the extract can absolutely do. It's not too light, and it's almost like a natural blueberry. Obviously,
Natural. Yeah.
blueberries in there too, but it's just one of those things where it's not that overly extract flavor where you get that artificial flavoring, and you can sort of pick up on it. But on this, you can't at all. It's just perfectly balanced blueberry. It doesn't overpower. It sits there in the middle and then like gets away, so you can have some of that nice yeast characteristic coming in the back end and just sort of clean everything up.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I ended up trying out a couple of drops. What I would do is I would take a small sample glass after I took the final gravity, and I'd pour some of the final gravity in, and I would drop, which is what we did with our Primo Snit. Our it was, what was it? The gingerbread cookie, Belgian dark strong. Is that with the gingerbread, we just took a couple of drops. We did 2 in one glass, 3 in another, and we tried them. That's what I did with the blueberry. And I found doing it that way with the blueberry was not successful because I did not like either flavoring doing it that way. I almost didn't put any flavoring in the beer at all. And I was going to chat with you about it, but talking to my wife, she kind of thought it had a lot of blueberry. I kind of thought it was like really like ethyl alcohol-y almost. So I wasn't going to do it at all. But I chatted with Brian in the past, and he told me about how much he added. So we ended up going with like the 1 milliliter, and it was perfect. Now, the only downside, #brewing fails. The only downside was, I know you guys have seen the brewery before. That fridge is our fermentation chamber. And apparently, when utilizing the FermZilla, you have these collection containers that you screw in on the bottom. Apparently, I didn't screw it in correctly because it was a very, 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 very small, like really small, really took a lot of time to kind of do a lot of damage, but a very small leak. And it wasn't until I came downstairs looking for the baby's monitor that I saw I had not only leaked out into the fermentation chamber, but out of the fermentation chamber. We ended up losing 1.5 gallons of beer. So we went from a 5-gallon yield to ended up being a little bit under 3.5 gallons. So that definitely stinks. Not ideal, but at the same time, I'm glad we got anything off of this, and I'm glad that I came downstairs looking for the baby's monitor.
I know. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, things happen. If any home brewer will tell you that happens more than we'd like to admit. So it's all about the beer. We'd all love a good yield, but as long as the beer is great and we can have some of it, it will work and it'll be fun. It's because at this point, it's very hard for us to even get it out to other people. Because of social distancing and things like that. So it really is only me and you and like our families drinking it.
Right.
So yeah, that's sort of like it out of the times for it to happen. This is probably, one of the better times because it's really only me and you drinking it at this point.
For now. But, yeah. You're absolutely right.
It's all about experimenting. Now we know we have this in the bag and we'll definitely pull this out, during the summer.
For sure. And I think if we have a summer, and not only that, I think that you and I are going to have some good chats about some more fruited Hefeweizens we can do, because I think that this is an extremely solid base, especially that honey malt really gives it that nice kick. And as you can see, even though we added probably 4 ounces of honey malt, it's just a little bit, and it doesn't compromise the color of the beer at all. And it really adds a nice layer of sweetness. I'm finding that honey malt has been our most consistently used malt in the past year, I think.
You don't need a lot of it. You just throw a little bit of it in there, and it helps with color and a flavoring, and it gives it a little bit of that malty sweetness that we're looking for.
Adds complexity.
And a lot of the beers that we have, we're using a lot of light malts that don't add a lot to the grist as into like flavor or like even that little kiss of like that golden color. So having a little bit of it goes a long way, and we found it very helpful.
Yeah. And as Brian commented, asking if we forgot to close the valve. No, it's the collection container. When I screwed it onto the bottom of the FermZilla, I must not have screwed it on correctly or tight enough because it was a really small leak. So
and we keep the valve open most of the times when we're doing it. We close it when we're dry hopping. We put the container on, expend the CO2, the oxygen out of it. But when we're dry hopping. So
yeah,
but we always keep it open.
We keep it open all the time. So I mean, it is what it is. This is the first time that we've had that problem, so I don't imagine it's something to learn from, and it's just something we're going to have to adjust. Now, we're going on 20 minutes. For people watching not live, it's probably going to be way too long. So real quick, let's talk about what we have going on in terms of our personal lives, in terms of the brewery and things like that.
Okay. I mean, you're the one with the big news. I'm just working. So do you want to go through your big news?
I mean, I wasn't going to mention it because I mentioned it on a previous video I'm going to release, but I don't mind doing it. I got a new job. I got a new job at the Boston Beer Company, my dream company, going from healthcare to, my dream field, working for an amazing company. And I'm working on the new brands. So I'm a project coordinator for, the new brands department. So sensory, research, product development, product insights, stuff like that. So I think that I've probably mentioned it to the group of brew tubers a lot. They're probably sick of hearing it. Just a job I'm really excited about. And for the first time, the YouTubes will hear it. But yeah, I have another video where I talk about it. Maybe I'll even edit it out since I mentioned it here. But so that's what we have going on. Brandon, what about you? What's going on in your life right now?
I mean, busy. I have a 2-month-old little boy. He's starting to sleep, which is nice. He's a big boy. He's almost 13 pounds already.
Yeesh. Wow.
Yeah, he's gotten big since last time you saw him. So
that's a big boy.
Yeah, and I got a crazy toddler and working a lot of hours at the hospital. I run a supply chain for a COVID management right now, so that's kind of crazy. Long hours, a lot of stress, but that's why I probably haven't been able to brew as much. And, with social distancing and stuff, like me and Nick can't brew together. So I've been trying to live vicariously through everybody else and sort of pop in and out when I'm able to. But once we get on the other side of this, I'm raring to go for some brew days. So hopefully we can get a few of those knocked out for the summer. Because, sure. It looks like a lot of our plans might not have happened. Homebrew con and things like that don't look like they may be happening. And if they are, I don't think it'll be happening with us. But yeah, it's I'm just hoping, we can get through this and have a damn good summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in terms of the brewery, we are going to be brewing for Big Brew Day, Saturday, May 2nd. Feel free to pop into our Zoom. I think I'm not going to do a StreamYard. I'll do a Zoom with Gary. Gary's going to be brewing. Hopefully Brian will be brewing. I know that Kevin might be brewing over at Clement's Homebrew. SJ will definitely be doing it. Josh is probably going to be doing it over at Peer View Brewing. So Man Bear Pig 11223344455. So there's going to be quite a few of us brewing, and I'm sure even more that I can't even think of. I know for our Unity Brew Day, I think we had up to 12 to 13 guys brewing at once, and then people that, fans of the channel kind of comment and stuff. So it was a great time. So we have that going on. We're going to be doing a new rendition of our Sam New England IPA, which I'm sure people are sick of hearing about. But that beer won us second place in a local comp, and it's a New England IPA that we're really pumped about. So we're going to be adding a different hop and removing a staple hop. So it's still going to be using cheater hops, but we love the grist, and it's something we're probably going to stick to. It's as close to a house brew as we have to this point. And we'll be brewing that for a second time. Again, just switching out the hops. Everything will be the same. So other than that, you have anything else to add, Brandon?
No, I'm good. I'm just glad to be back on a beer review. It's been a little bit.
That's right. It has been a little bit. We'll have to do this more often, whether it's live or not. We'll go on Zoom and pre-record or whatever. But I think that you and I are much like Ebony and Ivory. You can't have one without the other. Right. Ebony and Ivory. Working in perfect harmony. That's all the words I know. But that was a good little.
This is what you got to do. That's like when you're, there's a few moves you pull out on the dance floor, and that's one of them. You just
that go is one of them,
like area, and that's what you do at weddings for everybody out there.
This dude's like, I'm just I'm just chilling. I got my
That's
swag.
Yeah, that's all you do.
And there you go. There you
People
go.
think you
See,
don't have a dance when you do it.
I go with the 2-step, but fair enough if that's
Pretty
what
good.
you do.
Pretty good.
Brian, oh Lord, he comments. But listen, not everybody likes the dance moves. All I know is that we are smooth AF.
He's gonna
That's
like
all
it
that matters.
when he's got an exit 12 sandwich next time we see him at AHC. Just
he'll get Brian will get his mitts on us, so he's got them big ass hands. I'm a little nervous about that. But all right, we're out of here. Thanks for everyone that watched live, and we'll be back soon with something. Hopefully, some good topics to talk about and some other things we have going on. I'm no longer in healthcare, so Brandon is now my main point of contact for everything COVID. So I'll be hitting him up even more, and I'm his main point of contact when he wants to go and buy something Boston beer related at a package.
I'm just waiting for my swag. He came by today, dropped beers off, but no swag. That's
cool. No swag. Yeah, still gonna get the brewery for that. I owe Mike Dean a glass. Mike Dean wants a Boston Lager glass, so I owe him that. So I'll definitely be passing those things out. So cheers to everyone.
Cheers, guys.
And thanks for watching. And we'll be back. Salute.
Salute.